The night my truck window shattered. Something inside me snapped too. It wasn't just the sound, though, that pop crash of tempered glass felt like a gunshot in the quiet of our cul-de-sac. It was the laugh that followed, sharp, mean. A kid's laugh trying on a man's cruelty, like a jacket he hadn't earned. I was on the front porch with a mug of diner black coffee, steam drifting into the cool Carolina evening. My father's flag hung in that slow, respectful way it does when the air is thinking. Crickets sang. Somewhere, a train horn pulled a memory I couldn't place. Then came the shatter. I set the mug down. My boots found the old rhythm on the porch boards. Gravel crunched. The porch light threw a yellow cone across my driveway, catching a young face in a baseball cap turned backward, shoulders squared like a movie thug. Karen's kid. Tyler. 17. Going on invincible. He flicked the bat in his palm like he'd seen in some highlight reel and grinned at me like he'd won a prize. "You gonna sue me, old man?" he said, and laughed again. Behind him, the streetlight hummed, and the shards glittered across my bench seat like ice. He picked the worst truck to hit. That F-150 isn't just a truck. It's Saturdays with my boy, changing oil, handing him the socket while he asks the kind of questions that make you gulp. It's hay bales and fence posts, and the one time my late father, hands shaking from cancer, set his coffee on the tailgate and said quietly, "Take care of your mom. It's family, painted in Ford blue." "You're trespassing," I told Tyler. But my voice came out steady, too steady, the kind that makes you worry. "And you just committed criminal damage." He rolled his eyes. "My mom owns this block." "No, she doesn't. But that's what HOA life can feel like when someone like Karen becomes president. Rules turn into weapons. Warnings become threats. And sons learn quicker from power than from love." I took out my phone. I didn't yell. I didn't puff up. I just hit the security app. The floodlight at the garage clicked brighter. Tyler flinched. The camera's tiny red LED blinked to let us both know it had seen everything. I stepped close enough for him to smell coffee and cold anger. "You have 5 seconds to set the bat down and walk home," I said. On 6, I call the sheriff. He made the kind of choice every boy makes before he becomes a man. He didn't choose well. He lifted the bat like a dare. I pressed call. Sirens travel in stories. They start as rumor, then grow into promise, then arrive like judgment. By the time Deputy Hughes pulled up, 2 porch lights had clicked on, and blinds had parted like lips. Hughes is a quiet man, veteran's haircut, sheriff's star, that shines because he polishes it, not because he wants it to be seen. He looked at the glass. He looked at Tyler. He looked at the bat. "Son," he said, "that yours?" "Prove it," Tyler said, chin up. I didn't need to. I had the footage. Hughes watched it on my phone, eyes not moving, face not changing. He handed it back to me and spoke into his radio. I could hear Karen's front door slam 2 houses down, that fast staccato heel click she uses when she wants a scene. She stormed over, robe tied tight like a judge's robe in a school play, breath already hot with indignation. "This is harassment," she said, not looking at the glass, only at me. "You've been parking that eyesore on the street against HOA regulations for weeks." "My son was merely committing a felony," I said. She caught the camera light blinking and faltered, "Just a fraction." "You can't press charges," she said to me, then to Hughes. "And if he does, I'll file a harassment complaint with the association. We'll put a lien on his house for every violation he's ever theirs. Something you should know," said quietly, like I was telling her I'd found her lost dog. "I'm the HOA's counsel." Her mouth opened. No sound. The porch lights down the street burned brighter. It's funny how neighbors become stadium lights when a show starts. I didn't say it to flex. I said it because it changed the ground we stood on. For a year, the board had retained me as outside counsel for covenant enforcement issues, contract reviews, and, when tempers flared, to stand in the middle and help folks find their way back to neighbor. I don't blab about it. Conflict is easier when you don't lead with titles. But Karen, newly elected, always loud, never listened at meetings long enough to remember who was in the room. Then you can make this go away, she snapped, recovering. You work for us. No, I said. I work for the association. For the covenants. For the community. Hughes cuffed Tyler with all the ceremony of tying a shoe. You have the right to remain silent, he began. Tyler's bravado turned to pleading looks at his mother. She glared at me like I'd picked up the bat myself as the cruiser rolled off. Karen leaned in, breath full of peppermint and rage. You've made an enemy, she whispered. I picked up a handful of glass. It felt like cold sugar in my palm. No, I said. You made a mistake. Inside, my wife, Emma, was waiting by the kitchen island. The good dish towel folded in her hands, a habit she has when she's scared. The house smelled like lemon oil and Tuesday laundry. I set the glass in a cereal bowl because it felt right to put something ugly in something ordinary. Are we okay? She asked. We will be, I said, though my heart still rode the siren. I'm going to do this the right way, for us, and for the neighborhood. Every 25 seconds, life had raised the stakes, the shatter, the laugh, the camera, the handcuffs, the whisper. I didn't plan any of it, but I knew what came next would be my choice. Not revenge. Not a spectacle. Justice, quiet, correct, and final. I poured another coffee. The train horn sounded again, closer this time, like an answer. Tomorrow, I'd start with the bylaws. Morning in our town smells like bacon from someone else's kitchen. The sun doesn't climb, it moseys. I sat at the kitchen table with the covenant's bylaws. An enforcement policy spread like a map to somewhere people forgot existed. Common sense. Emma slid a plate next to me. Eggs toast. A slice of orange cut neat, like her grandmother taught her. She squeezed my shoulder. Be the oak, she said. It's our family phrase. Bend to the wind. Don't break at 9 a.m. I walked into the HOA office. 2 rooms in a repurposed model home, staged with fake fruit and real headaches. Lorraine, our manager, looked up over readers. Heard about the truck, she said softly. Yep, I said, setting the folder down. We're going to handle it by the book. By the book starts with notice. Not to me. To Karen, not about vandalism, that's the sheriff's lane and the DA's call, but about conflict of interest and abuse of authority. I pulled the clause. Directors must avoid any action that creates the appearance of impropriety or uses. Association authority to benefit themselves or their immediate family. I wrote in the calmest words I knew. As president, you were expected to model compliance, not just enforce it. The board will meet in executive session to discuss governance concerns arising from last night's incident. You may attend with counsel. You may not preside. Every 25 to 30 seconds, you raise the stakes. Here's how it happens in real life. You mail a certified letter. You copy the board. You file the security footage in a read-only drive with timestamps and chain of custody notes. You send a courtesy note to Deputy Hughes with the link. You ask Lorraine to pull any complaints Karen has filed against me in the last 12 months. You find 3 nuns substantiated. You highlight language that shows a pattern of harassment cloaked as enforcement. Paper cuts become pressure points. By lunch, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. It was Tyler. His voice was smaller. Can we talk? Without my mom? I met him at the park. The swings creaked in a rhythm older than anyone here. He scuffed his shoe in the mulch, hands jammed in pockets like he wanted to disappear. I'm sorry, he said, eyes on the ground. I was stupid. I and my friends. They said you were making the neighborhood look trashy with your flags and your truck and I don't know. Mom says you think you're better than everyone. Wow. I let the silence do its work. Then I told him a story. About my dad's flag. About promises. About the time I broke a window with a baseball when I was his age and how the neighbor put me to work fixing it one slow. Hot afternoon, sweating alongside the man I'd wronged. Not because he wanted free labor. Because he wanted me to feel the cost. Are you going to press charges? He asked. I don't make that decision, I said. But I can tell the DA you showed remorse. That you apologized? It matters, he nodded. I'll pay for the window. I'll fix it myself if you show me how. It's a start, I said. But you're also going to apologize to my wife. And you're going to stand up to your friends the next time they laugh at hurting people? Swallowed hard and agreed. Stakes rise, then they bend. Boys can learn. Men can help them. Back at the office, I found an email from Karen sent to the community listserv. Subject, urgent board meeting, dangerous resident. She accused me of creating a hostile environment, raving weapons, my camera phone, and threatening a minor. She attached an out-of-context, still from the footage, me stepping forward, jaw tight, arm extended, holding the phone. No mention of the bat. No mention of the shatter. A lie moves fast when it wears an official title. I replied with a simple, factual note to the same list. Board will meet Thursday in executive session regarding governance. Personal matters involving minors will not be discussed on this list. Please refrain from speculation. Here is the Sheriff Incident Number 4 reference. I closed with something my father taught me. We're neighbors first. Let's act like it. That afternoon, Deputy Hughes called. DA's leaning toward misdemeanor damage and supervised restitution if you're amenable, he said. Kid came in. Told the truth. Brought his mom. She wasn't helpful. Amenable, I said. Restitution, community service, apology, and a no-contact order between Karen and my family for 90 days unless through counsel, Hughes chuckled. She's going to love that. The board meeting arrived like summer thunder. We met in the clubhouse, that fake Tuscan place with a fountain that always sounds like it's trying too hard. Members lined the back wall. Lorraine placed a stack of agendas by the door. Karen strutted in last, wearing a blazer the color of warning signs. She took the center seat until I slid the printed agenda in front of her. Item 1. Temporary removal of presiding officer due to conflict. Vice President Daniels will chair. Her eyes flashed. She half rose. Then she remembered witnesses matter. She sat. We kept it boring, which is how you keep it safe. I presented the timeline, the footage, the policies. I did not raise my voice. I did not speak about her parenting. I spoke about duties, about appearances, about how people's faith in their HOA isn't built by punishments. It's built by fairness, applied the same way every time, even when it hurts. Then came the twist. I didn't plan, but welcomed. Lorraine had pulled financials for the quarter, in case anyone asked. Someone did. A retired CPA in the back, Mr. Whitaker, who never speaks unless numbers aren't retraced a hand. Why did landscaping expenses jump 40% in May? He asked. Faces turned. Lorraine frowned. She flipped pages. New vendor, she said slowly. Green Horizon. Whitaker adjusted his glasses. That's Karen's brother-in-law's LLC. Silence. Then whispers. I don't like blood sport. But sunlight is medicine. We examined the contract. No competitive bids. No board vote recorded. A check signed by Karen and an old treasurer who'd moved to Florida. Appearances became realities. The room felt different, like a fever had just broken. Daniels cleared his throat. Given the governance concerns and potential conflicts, I move we suspend the president's authority pending a third-party audit and refer the matter to council for guidance. Seconded. Voted. Past Karen stood, 2 bright spots on her cheeks. Eyes glassy with a mix of fury and something else, fear maybe. She pointed at me across the table. You think you won, she said. This isn't over. I wanted to say something cutting. To win the way boys want to win. Instead, I thought of Tyler's voice in the park. Small and trying. I don't win if we all lose, I said. Let's fix this. All of it. On the way home, the sun folded itself behind the pines. The neighborhood felt quieter, like a held breath finally exhaled. Emma met me in the driveway. The new glass glowed clean in the truck door. Tyler came by, she said. He apologized. He brought brownies from his grandmother, the good kind. I asked. I told him mistakes don't have to be stories we keep telling. She smiled. He's going to help you replace the weather stripping tomorrow. Every 25 to 30 seconds, another twist. Not explosions. Choices. the kind that add up to a life you can look at without flinching. The audit took 2 weeks and 1,000 deep breaths. It revealed what Whitaker suspected and then some: rushed contracts, missing bids, and a habit of backdating approvals when complaints trickled in. Not a criminal empire. Not a scandal for TV, just the kind of slow, sloppy rot that sets in when power is never told no. I drafted a remediation plan. Not sexy. Not viral. Effective. We'd rebid the landscaping. Institute a 2-signature rule with rotating signers. Publish board packets a week in advance. Ban family vendors unless no alternative existed, and all owners approved by vote. And because people need symbols you can touch, we'd replace the warped community bulletin board with a glass-fronted case that locks. Announcements stopped turning into graffiti wars. The DA finalized Tyler's deal. Restitution. 60 hours of community service, half with our maintenance crew, half at the animal shelter, plus a letter of apology to my family and to the neighborhood. He wrote the letter on lined paper. His penmanship tried hard to be a man's. He didn't make excuses. He wrote about pressure and wanting to belong and how he confused strength with cruelty. Emma read it at the kitchen table and cried in that quiet way that waters the roots instead of flooding the fields. I shook Tyler's hand and told him if he ever wanted to learn to change brake pads, my Saturdays were open. Karen fought. Of course she did. She hired an attorney from her sister's church, a man who wore cufflinks shaped like gavels. He sent me a letter full of adjectives and thunder. We replied with verbs and dates. We didn't paint her as a villain. We painted the rules and stood beside them. When the special meeting came, owners voted to remove her from the presidency, but keep her on the board. If she agreed to complete a governance workshop and recuse herself from all enforcement actions involving my home or her immediate neighbors, it wasn't banishment. It was boundaries. She refused. She resigned. Sometimes the hardest thing to stand up to is your own reflection. The last twist came not with drama, but with a knock. A week after the vote, as the sun did its gold over the mailboxes thing it does in October, Karen stood on my porch. No robe, no blazer. Just a plain sweater and eyes that looked older than they had any right to. She held a small box. "For your truck," she said. Inside were new floor mats, the heavy kind that catch mud and salt. Tyler picked them. He said you tracked too much straw and after feeding. I nodded. "Thank you," I said, meaning it. She looked past me at our living room, the wall with my father's folded flag in its triangle case. "I went too far," she said. Her voice wasn't an apology exactly, not yet. More like the road that leads to one. "Sometimes this place makes me feel, if I don't control it, it will swallow me." I thought about the train horn at night. About how sound can fill a person if you let it. "Control is a lonely god," I said softly. "Community's messier, but it forgives." She nodded once, sharply, like a deal made with herself. "I'll see you around," she said, and left. We rebuilt slow. That's the only way it sticks. The new landscaper started. The fountain in the clubhouse learned to whisper instead of shout. Tyler showed up on Saturdays like he said, and we ruined good shirts with good grease. He told me about college visits and a girl who liked the way he laughed when he wasn't trying to hurt someone. I told him about the law, about how it's not a sword or a shield. It's a fence line that says, "Here is yours, here is mine." We both get to sleep. On a Sunday, I took the truck down by the lake where the water wears the sky and pretends it's simple. I set out a folding chair and poured coffee from a thermos that's been 2 more practices and recitals than I can count. Emma joined me, her hand finding mine the way a key finds a lock. "Do you miss fighting?" she asked, a smile in her voice. "Sometimes," I said, "but I like winning better when nobody loses." The sirens were far away. The crickets were back on their shift. A pair of boys on bikes skidded to a stop to throw rocks into the water and argue about whose splash went farther. Their laughter didn't cut. It stitched. I thought about the first night, the glass, the laugh, the whisper, about how anger had come to my porch and how I'd invited justice in instead. Not the kind that breaks. The kind that binds. Sometimes standing up for what's right looks like a courtroom. Sometimes it looks like a meeting agenda nobody posts on Facebook. Most days, it looks like showing up in small ways until the big ways are the only ones left. The lake was calm again. And for the first time in a long time. So was I. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't to swing back, it's to stand steady. Set the boundary and let fairness do the talking. Quiet justice lasts longer than loud victory. Have you ever dealt with an HOA power tripor, a neighbor who crossed the line? Tell me how you handled it in the comments. I read every one, and your stories help this community learn and stand stronger together. If you believe respect and fairness still win in small-town America, hit subscribe and share this with a neighbor who needs to hear it. Let's stand up together.